הסליחות בוחן לבבות, גולה עמוקות, דובר צדקות.
יום ב' 7 בבוקר, סליחות שניות. הבעל תפילה הוא רבי לוי יצחק שפירא. סליחות של יום ג' בבוקר. הבעל תפילה הוא רב לוי יצחק שפירא.
Secho mitach dole meiseroi lecho es baze vachtido ve shemadino yekro nidoroi ladino yashalem negdano lecholamei bechatzreis beisadinoi b'sechich Yerushalayim hallelujah.
Shapiro is in Australia, 16 Australia is Russia, sein Bruder Rom, Zawadel, Rom, der Schofrum, Baspnine. From Ida, Baspnine.
Das war die ganze Sprache. Das war ein guter Besuch. Das war schon Gabois. Das war schon Chazon. Das war so viele Sachen. Komm mal nach der Schloss.
Wir kommen nach der Mama für die Werbung.
Nach der Schloss.
Nachher von den Kindern. Die eigenen Kinder und die ganze Kinder von uns.
Das muss ich wahr auf den Text.
Amen. So Besuch ist Tevis, nur eine Sache nachher. Nachher zu werden gesehen.
Danke.
Na guten Leben.
Also ist Donnerstag gewesen, der goldene Kasse.
Wir waren praten, wenn wir die Lampen hatten. Wir sind in der Medien. Das war schwach, aber die Lampen hatten.
Die Kinder gemacht von mir ein Ding, der ganze Sprache von euch, und dann die ganze Sprache.
Was von Rabbitsen?
Wir waren eine gute Schau und haben eine gute gekriegt. Dann Besuch ist Tevis.
Arriving in the U.S. in 1953, Mrs. Guta Shapiro and her husband came to see the Rebbe.
When we came here in 1953, we were traveling with 6 days. We left the 19th, this I remember, and we came with the 26th, and we're staying in Manhattan in a hotel there. Hotel, can say hotel. But and then we went in to see the Rebbe. The Rebbe fragt, was macht ihr? Ja, mein Husband denkt, ich has Kinder. Ich frage by Frau. And later the Rebbe tell us to go where the joint send us. The joint is the organization what can care of us. They send us in Cleveland, so we went to Cleveland. There are not a couple of our family in this time went Caucasians, and my daughter was getting married in the 70s, so we went to the Rebbe of Yechidus. We was nervous before the wedding, and the Rebbe asked all kind of questions, and he told us to make the Chasana in Kronheit, und wir sollen nicht badern und sich machen, die Place weil die Menschen sagen, sie folgen nicht und geht über die andere dieselbe Sache, von meinem Namen wegen. Wir sollen nicht machen können. Und das war die main thing, was der Rebbe hat uns gerät wegen auf die Chides. Und wir gehen abbrochen.
Tzvi Meir Steinmetz was a Holocaust survivor and well-known poet. For many years, he would compose new poems in honor of the Rebbe's birthday. His wife, Devorah Steinmetz, ran a Bekur Cholim organization. Their descendants are proud shluchim of the Rebbe all over the world.
To Budapest, to Connecticut, to Eretz Israel, to Moscow, to Milano, Vienna. Texas. Texas, yes, we have someone in Texas too, yeah.
Nach Schloss verantwortlich mit Volk, aber in Agri, das dem Schiff. Und dann hat gut Teil, und nach dieser schon im Teil.
Oh, man.
Das ist hier ein Pizza. Der Mann sei zu rechnen, und den Fadila Yes, das ist mir geschrieben. Da war eine schwarze Flache, da liegt es schon im Zähne.
Oh mein.
Aber mal schaut sich mir, was Blut tut. Da morgen wird es nicht geschrieben.
Maschlen sein jetzt.
Das ist ein bisschen Steinmetz.
Ja, Heinz is a bigger luncheon, and we have the guests from the Kingsbrook Hospital, all the leaders, and this is Mr. Mink and David Mink and the president of the hospital. And Mr. Rosenberg will introduce you.
Das ist für die ganzen Gründe, das Loch haben, meine Arbeit. Loch. 14 Millionen. Loch.
Pero baby, for the fear shall I for a cousin, Rivka Baschab.
Rivka
Baschab.
Und für die Sache war, das ist schon ein Change. Ich hätte erzählen, wie viel Rivka hat gelebt. Das ist nach 8 Jahren.
Rabbi Label Alevsky came to the U.S. in 1958. He shares some personal experiences he had with the Rebbe.
I came to Schleichas 7 Schleichas, 1958, May 9th, and I came to Meir. And I was scared to see the Rebbe. So I hid in the other corner, all the way in the opposite, and I didn't see the Rebbe the first time. Then I saw the Rebbe, and then it was 3 days later, it was a February. So I saw the Rebbe. At the first February, I was hiding so the Rebbe don't see me. I was afraid to face him. Then my friends started pulling me. Zog L'chaim, the Rebbe is waiting. I didn't know what they were saying, but I took a look, and I saw that the Rebbe is looking in my direction. And somebody gave me a cup of L'chaim. So I said L'chaim to the Rebbe, and I ate again. Then they told me the Rebbe was saying, who is the Alevsky? And I was in Mechanel, the younger. I don't remember, either the Naya or the younger. In preparation of the Chidus, I was told to write to the Rebbe my entire history and to ask whatever I want to ask. I wrote a lot of things. Among them, I asked the Rebbe how to daven the proper way. So the Rebbe gave me a whole hadrach how to daven, how to take chassidus before davening, how to prepare. And after I left, I sat down and I typed up the entire chassidus, and the Rebbe was my guy. I sent it to the Rebbe. There was like very few minor corrections. More or less accepted. That was it. He says to me, Edem ist das Verdammen, tracht man durch den Maimer zu dem Ost, zu dem Kette, was man gelernt, und mit dem steht man so dammen. And then he said, on every match of dammen sagt man, at die Series wird nachlass. Kann man übertragen noch einmal die Kunde von dem Maimer oder die Sicher, und der Kette, aber nicht dann das, womit dann ist Mafsig sein, in Mirchas Mosten. Und dann der Rebbe said, das, was du fragst, wer sehen wir soll das machen? Also es eigentlich ein 10 ist, ich schon bekam ein Chiesen. Da ist also genug, habe ich so Zeit. Und mir sagt, dann mir lasst nicht von dem. Und mir gibt es kein Kompliment, geht es bei mir da weg.
When others don't. Lasket, what's that Russian word?
Lasket means letting the bag compliment, you know.
Those others will stop complimenting you, or when
If you see that others don't compliment you, it goes over by itself.
you're worried. You're worried that you're being a chitzon too much.
Yes.
That's interesting.
As a young girl in the 1960s, Mrs. Devora Alevsky was privileged to assist Rabbitsen Chana.
The story about Rabbitsen Chana is that she was part of our family when we left Russia. And I was too young to remember her, but I do remember that as soon as we arrived in the United States, when I was younger, I was 8 years old, at that point we came in to visit her the first time with my family. Okay? So
Where?
my parents, right here I don't recall the whole experience, but I know that we did because, you know, my mother and my father traveled with them from Russia as she traveled as their mother, as the grandmother. She took the Baba Sara Katznellenberg and gave her passport. So it was part of the family. So we were very good friends. What I recall most vividly about meeting her is when we would come to the Neshei Chabad convention every year with my mother, and we would meet the Rabbitsen Chana. And then when I lived in Crown Heights for a few years when I went to seminary, at that point I was even closer with her for two reasons. One is she would stand outside on the corner every Shabbos, almost every Shabbos. People walked over and said hello to her, and since we knew each other, she was very friendly. And the other reason was because once or twice when she needed help in the house, David Raskin, who was in charge of the house, asked me if I would be there to help her. So that was the longest time that I spent with her. One was when I was about 17 years old. I was going to seminary here in Crown Heights in New York, and the lady that was taking care of her had to leave, and Reb David asked me if I would come and stay with her and sleep over with her and help her for a whole week. So that was around, it was actually from after Pesach till around Shavuos time. It was 1 week in between there. And that week happened to be the time that that was the Neshei Chabad convention. My mother had come from Cleveland. We lived in Cleveland, so my mother had come to from Cleveland to join the Neshei Chabad convention. And that was actually also, at that time, I was also going out with my husband. We were dating. We were just, and the Rebbe had actually made the shidduch. That's another whole story. But so when I came to the Rabbitsen, the first time I came in, Rebbe David Raskin introduced me, told me what I was going to do. I would come there every evening at 7:30 after my day of school, after my work. I was teaching in a Talmud Torah and going to seminary in the morning. So when I came in the first time, she had sitting around her dining room table was a group of ladies, the Neshei Chabad Council, and they discussed with her the Neshei Chabad convention, and she introduced me to them, and she said, and by the way, alle Mädels, was kommen helfen mir, haben das Schuss, sie werden gleich Kalles. So that was an interesting introduction. And then she would tell me that I should come every evening at 7 o'clock, and I would come there every evening at 7 o'clock. So I was there for a whole week. The end of the week when my mother was with me, it was Sunday evening, the convention, and we all attended the convention. During the convention, the Rebbe would speak to every woman personally if they had any questions, and my mother and I had actually gone up and spoken to the Rebbe. And then we took my mother to the Greyhound station. Actually, my future chassan and I took him to the Greyhound station, and then he took me back, and it was 7:30, and I rang the bell to the Rabbitsen's house to go spend the evening with her. And as normally she would come right away to the door, but this time she didn't, so I waited a few minutes. I rang the bell a second time, and I waited a few more minutes, and I rang the bell a third time. And this time the door opened, but it was the Rebbe. And obviously, it shocked me to see the Rebbe opening the door to me. He gave a very, very big smile, and he motioned me to come in, and he said, "Dein Mami ist noch da? Is your mother still here?" Because we had just spoken that afternoon. I said, "No, she left back to Cleveland." And he went ahead of me, sat down next to the Rabbitsen at the dining room table, the Rabbitsen Chana, and I went into the room that I was supposed to stay. And later on, when the Rebbe left and I came out, the Rabbitsen said to me that she wasn't feeling well, and the Rebbe came to speak to a doctor, and because it was an unusual time. He never usually comes at that time, as far as I knew, because I was there every week, day that same time, and the Rebbe was never there. And that, so he came to be with her and to speak to the doctor. That was what she told me. And then she asked me, "How did you feel?" Obviously, I couldn't answer. It was just like an overwhelming, when you saw my son, it was an overwhelming feeling. The first time we walked in as Chassan Kala to visit with her, and my husband has his own personal stories as a bacher because he worked for Rabbi David Raskin in Tzach. He actually also helped the Rabbitsen in many different occasions. And so we both knew her. So when we walked in to visit her the first time, as a good gentleman, he held the door open for me, and the Rabbitsen said, "Bei uns Hasidim geht der Mann freie." So, which means, and by us as Hasidim, the man goes first. So that was an interesting observation that.
Mrs. Shulamis Kazin and her husband were sent by the Rebbe on Schleichas to Cleveland, Ohio in 1953.
By the 6th day war, after the 6th day war, I come home from the convention, and my husband said, "Electric is out." So there was a cross the street, a new tenant, a new neighbor came in, and I should ask him. He was outside working with the grass, and I came out and said, "Oh, it's so nice to see new people in our street." I said, "Yeah, your husband is a nice rabbi." I said, "Thank you, I know. My husband told me you're an electrician, maybe you would help me." He said, "Give me a yarmulke." I said, "Oh, it's so nice to have neighbors, who want to wear a yarmulke." "If you go to Rome, you do what the Romans do. I'm not religious." "Okay." So I said to him, "You heard about Israel, what happened?" He said, "Yes, I would do everything for Israel." I said, "If you would do everything for Israel, they have to do a lot." Just the Rebbe spoke about film. I told him this whole story of it about the Rebbe spoke about the 6th day war, before the war, and that people should put on film, and all this film will help, that the MNB will not be able to do anything. And the women, all the women, but film, I didn't tell us a pair. I told him the whole story about the Rebbe said. He said, "Film, I'm not going to put on film." I went to the army, he said to me. He went to the army, and he would do everything for Israel, but film not. So I said, here's a pamphlet, read the pamphlet. Okay, then Henya came in with her daughter. I said, "Henya, go across the street. Maybe you'll persuade me to put on film." She works with her daughter, and he said, "You have such a beautiful girl." He said, "Don't you have children? Go talk to my wife." She walks in to talk to his wife, and the wife said that he was married to have a wife with a child. She had asthma, and when she gave birth to the child, they both died. He was very upset. He went to the army. After 4 years, he married this girl, and she was pregnant 3 or 4 times. She lost the children. Now they decided to adopt a child. So Henya said to her, "We have a rabbi in New York. Maybe you'll write to the rabbi in New York, and you have to go to meet." We said, No, not me. So finally she said she can't go over with Hania. She said, go talk to my husband. She went to call the husband in from outside, and he said, tell me the story about the Rebbe. He said, okay, if this will help, why not? So Hania was by me a little while, and then she wrote a letter to the Rebbe. She gave me the letter to mail. And after, they sent the letter to the Rebbe, and then the letter came in, answer from the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, but you wrote to me about the doctors. They said, you know, that's impossible to have a child. And whatever you have a problem, she have a problem. We Jews are higher than nature. You will tell me good news in a special time. I said, Mazel tov, Mazel tov. He said, are you normal? I said, don't you believe? He said, I believe not like you. I said, that's enough. But if you believe, you're going to have a child. Anyways, after 3 months, she got pregnant. And he comes to us and brought me a parrot film, beautiful parrot film. So he came to us. My husband showed him how to put on film. But he bought 18 pair of film. He was ashamed to put on himself. He wanted his brother-in-law, his father-in-law, his friends. He bought everybody $18 a pair. He bought everybody this film. So finally, he said to me, this is the Rebbe's child. When the child is going to be a year and 3 months, he'll take her to the Rebbe. Meanwhile, he went for Pesach. My children should stay by him. Rabbi Alevsky, so I said, you can't. You don't have a kosher house. He made Pesach, the first Pesach he made in the house. After Pesach, same thing, no Shabbos, no kasher, anything. Then they went to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe talked to them and blessed them and told them to keep Shabbos, keep kosher, keep mikvah. They said no. So the Rebbe talked to them, and the Rebbe said, and Shabbos, you shouldn't work. He said, I can't, I have to work on Shabbos. The Rebbe said, if you don't work yourself, maybe you send somebody to work. No, I have to work myself. So he argued the Rebbe. And then the Rebbe said to him, okay, keep only mikvah. And I promise you that your little girl will brothers and sisters. So finally they decided. And then after a little while, she got pregnant. She had a boy. She had again a brother from the Rebbe. And then one time I went to the Rebbe, and she asked me to ask the Rebbe that she would like to have more children. The Rebbe asked me how old she is and gave a blessing, and she had a twin.
With materials from the Living Archive, established by the Rohr Family Foundation. Video collection preserved by Benjamin Federman in tribute to his parents.